welcome to a new episode of League of DFS. My name is Chris Chung. I am a staff writer for Fake Pigskin, but that is for a different sport. I'm usually very much involved in the fantasy football world, and this year I am trying out the League of Legends scene on daily fantasy sports on DraftKings.com. There's also one on Skrilla, but tonight we'll just be focusing on the DraftKings because they provide the best slates, provide the best games where we can play for money. So, tonight I would like to address some of the basics, introduce some of the things that are associated with League of Legends. If you are interested in this game, that's why you're watching this video, hopefully. And I will to go over some of the languages that is being used, much like NBA and hockey and all those other traditional sports. Esports, League of Legends has their own language too, and that you must know in order for you to take great advantage of and be able to know what to listen to. On top of that, I will provide you with some of the resources that I personally use to help me prepare for the daily fantasy game. In sports in general, before fantasy sports became such a popular pastime of the United States, a lot of people have to derive their information from sources that are not stats or fantasy oriented, and then will have to make their own fantasy type of conclusions or build their own build their own models in their head to know how to translate those informations into DFS. Now, and then we're going to talk about MSI, and finally we will go into lineup building. So let's start off with the basics. In sports, you have different languages. In NBA, rebounds, steals, boards, you hear all of those. In football, you have the touchdowns, you have a cutback lanes, or maybe field goals. All of those games have their own language. In League of Legends, it's the same, but only now you have to be up to date with the kids' language. They use shorthands, they use a lot of quick little abbreviated words just so they can communicate better. If you played a game of League of Legends, you already are familiar with a lot of these words. If you're not, these are some of the words that you should become familiar with when you tap into the resources that I'm providing for you, that you'll understand what you're looking for. The first thing you'll always want to know is KDA, which stands for Kill, Death, Assist. Right here on in the middle of the page here, KDA, kill. And it's a composite score. You want to know it's an average of the numbers of kills, deaths, and assists that a player might accumulate over their career or over the season. A higher number is better. That means they are better at killing and assisting and dying less. The lower number typically means they either die a lot or they don't provide much values in kills and assists. So these stats are important. They are not to be relied on solely, but they were used to guide you. Much like yards per carry is really pointless in NFL, KDA has that similar kind of less usefulness in making a direct connection to fantasy. But it does have a good correlation as to which players will perform well for you, and you might want to target those. It gets complicated, but if you played in any fantasy sports a long time, you know that these surface stats doesn't really provide much value for you in preparation. Okay, other things that you want to pay attention to are first blood, which means the first person gets the kill for which team. You want to know the word laning, which is the early part of the game where they are trying to destroy the towers and get their teams closer to their enemy territory. It's pretty much a game chess matches, if you want to picture that. Once they cross over half the board, that's when the early game phase is ending. You must know that there's an early, mid, and late game phase. Early game phase, laning, people typically stay in their own role as whether they are top, whether in the middle of the map, or whether they're in the bottom of the map. By mid-game is when the first layer of defense is destroyed. This is when teams start showing different strategies and trying to push towards the enemy's base. And in the late game, this is when one or both teams' base are very much wrecked. Their defenses are going down like crazy, and teams are now have to rely on being stronger with their itemization or with their skills, and you'll see a lot more team fights that happens. So these are some of the language you want to keep in mind. The other thing you want to know is inhibitor, which is something that all teams aim for. Once you destroy an inhibitor, your minions or your side characters will be stronger to help you out to continue to push into enemy base. The ultimate objective of League of Legends, of course, is to destroy the enemy nexus. The game can go on forever if the team are not able to destroy the nexus. So unlike most traditional sports where the timer counts down, in League of Legends, really there is no timer that's counting down, so the game can go on forever and racking up stats. Late games are usually very fun for fantasy, not so much if you're watching it and you want to get on to the next game already. Other things I want you to pay attention to when you listen to podcasts or reading articles, patch-related changes is something that you must know. Perhaps you don't have the time to figure it out what they are at each patch, because every 2 weeks a new patch comes out and there's a lot of changes that's being made. This series, the League of DFS series, will try to help explain some of those patch-related changes and how that affects the game of League of Legends itself, and how that is going to help you pick the champion. For example, earlier in this year, the patch 8.1, we are in season 8, so the first patch 8.1 was a very much a AD carry meta, as they would call it, meaning that all the teams are focused on surrounding cast would try to play around their best player who's playing the AD carry role. The game was also much slower in 8.1. People have way more defensive, way more healing, which causes the game to really slow down, and people are just waiting to level up their characters and play it slowly and until they get very beefed up by their items and by their skills, and then they try to attack the enemy base. Now we're in 8.8 now, going into 8.9. The game has sped up so much. There are less use for playing a slow game. There's more incentive to just kind of go ahead and destroy the enemy base as fast as you can, get to the objectives like the dragons or the barons, get to those objectives quicker, because they are stronger now, and you do not want to lose them to your enemy, even if you are not intend to use them to power up your own team. You don't want the enemy team to take them, so it becomes very much a back and forth fight. It's very exciting when someone does a Baron steal. You'll have all of those. Just YouTube it, type in League of Legends Baron steals. You'll enjoy those fights, and those are kind of the kind of things that gets my heart pumping when you're watching League of Legends. Okay, so those are some of the languages. You can always type in to Google the League of Legends language, because there's a lot of them and you must know them in order to be better prepared for daily fantasy sports. The other thing I want to provide for you are resources. Resources that I mentioned in earlier, things such as the feed. Things such as podcasts will help you, articles that you can read, websites you can visit. I've already provided for you one that you will want to constantly consult, and that's Action Sports Network's John George's article at 99 Problems DFS. He writes and gives you a slant on the DFS perspective, but also more so on the betting side, and that is very helpful too, and that's where I draw a lot of my information from. But you also want to be ahead of the curve. You want to know the players that are good. You want to know how the teams are changing their strategy. And for that, you might want to consider DOT Esports. That's DOT Esports. They have a very great collection of all the different types of esports games that are out there, and they have articles coming in every single day. Very comprehensive. I enjoy listening to their podcast as well. But the League of Legends section is where you want to be. The second one is Blitz app. This is the one I have on my iPhone. It's very useful because it helps me keep up to date what games are coming up. Most of these games are played in the middle of the night or during the workday, which means I have to prepare my lineup the night before or shortly before I have to go to work. Yeah, that's League of Legends. Unfortunately, it's pretty much like soccer, where it happens on the other side of the world. That's why these games are so late. But Blitz app will keep you up to date what the scores are, and they also provide articles and they have interviews with players, analysts, all of those very useful information. The last one I want to talk about is LCS Rundown Podcast. That's LCS Rundown Podcast. These are a group of guys that just discusses the game of League of Legends, and they always discuss what's the most current news that are upcoming. They're focused mainly on the big regions, and then they will talk about international events such as the MSI, which we will be playing in these upcoming weeks. So have them a listen. They're a very great group. I think one of the things I enjoy most about them is that they're unfiltered. Yes, that is it's NSFW, so don't listen with your kids around. But they also give you quite a very blunt assessment of players and teams and their strategies. They break it down into very easy to understand concepts and words. So this is a very good podcast to use to keep in mind. It's pretty much for me like listening to Around the NFL podcast. This is kind of like the similar kind of thinking when I want to take that information and apply it to the fantasy realm of League of Legends. Okay, so with that said, let's talk about MSI. MSI is the mid-season invitational. They started yesterday. I got wrecked. I picked the wrong teams. We are currently in very much the lower tier of the players, because these teams are trying to fight for a chance to get to the big stage, which will happen, I think, in a week or two. But right now, these are all weaker teams. But again, in the daily fantasy sports, it doesn't really matter if they're weak or strong. You get to play what you have. These teams are matched up with each other. One of the questions or the comments I got from my last video was to discuss the different regions and their different styles. While I can talk a little bit about how their different styles may look like, and perhaps you can draw some information, it is very hard to translate what they do in their own region on the international stage, because they each are so different in the way they approach each other versus the way they approach international opponents. So for our purpose, I'll talk about the lower tier, which are Australia, Vietnam, Hong Kong, and I think Brazil and Latin America. These are not considered the majors. They have their level of competition is lower, and when you compare it to the big regions, but they do put up a lot of kills. They are an aggressive teams, as you can see. They enjoy these team fights. You see right here an example of team fights where they bunch together. They try to kill their opponents, and pretty much good for fantasy in terms of that, because they're aggressive. Being aggressive can be one of two things. You're either putting up a lot of kills, or you're being killed a lot and your opponent gains a lot of the fantasy points. So picking the right team is always important. Now, as far as aggressive style goes, I think the Asian teams typically are very aggressive. Maybe the Latin American teams as well as aggressive. The other ones, like Australia and Brazil, I don't really get a good sense of how they play, but most of the time it feels like they're playing not to die, so they really limit upside in terms of gaining points. The biggest regions that you want to pay attention to, and once MSI gets there, that's where the excitement happens, are the LCS, North America LCS, European LCS, LPL, which is China, League of Legends Pro League China, and LCK. LPL and LCK, which is the Korean league, China and Korea has the best teams across the world. It's been over several but over the last several years in the international stage, you usually have the Chinese or the Korean team that takes down takes down the competition, the tournament itself. But the LCS teams will have the upper hand over the ones that I just named off. So that's something to think about. That is something to that's more of a global view. As we get closer to Summer League, I will focus solely on LCS for DFS purposes because it is easier to kind of explain and talk about, and also much more fun in terms of the player pool and selection. Okay, so that's it for kind of talking about MSI, what we can expect. So let's talk about tomorrow. What do we have? What are we expecting for tomorrow? Now, tomorrow we have 4 teams playing. A team from Brazil, a team from Australia, a team from Japan, and a team from Turkey. That's what it was. Okay, Turkey, Brazil, Japan, and Turkey, Japan, Brazil, and oh shoot, where is it from? Turkey, Brazil. In either case, based on the Vegas line, the betting odds that are put out, and on John George's writing, we expect Supermassive and Kaboom to be the top tier teams that will be playing tomorrow. So for all 3 slates that you're looking into, you kind of want to be more heavily on the team, stacking the team from those 2 teams. Now, it's not easy because they're both considered favorites, so typically their salary will always be on the higher end. I talked about it yesterday about how to look into the salaries, but the first thing I always go to is go to team and look into the salaries and how they're sorted, because the way that the teams are sorted, that's how their players of each team are sorted as well. So supermassive players from the top, jungle, mid, and so forth will always be the most expensive, followed by Kaboom, and then Pentagram, and then the Dire Wolf. So for value, you might want to consider inserting a player from a underdog team to build in your lineup, but you don't want too many of them. What I'll provide you today is what I think will be the most optimal when I try to fit in the dominant teams. Salary, we'll look into salary. This is how it's divided, which is reflective of the opening money betting odds. Meaning 5,600, 5,300, there's not too much separating the top 2 teams, but there's a massive drop off to the underdog teams where it's 4,000 and 3,700. So what that means is that it's impossible to fully stack Supermassive with Kaboom for the first leg, for example. What you have to do is then finagle. You want to try to get as many of the players from Supermassive and Kaboom, and then punt at certain positions. Being that this is a best of 1 series for each slate, I think I'm going to consider punting at the team position, and also try to consider punting at a flex position. So this is how I start off my build, and you can use this as a blueprint. Again, I'm much more of a cash type of player, so I don't really pay too much attention to ownership at this point, which could bite me in the butt because with the 2-game slate, it's usually it always feels more GPP-ish. But I have a process, and I'm going to trust my process. It may not work. It didn't work yesterday, like I mentioned, but I will continue to play it. And just because I don't have enough data from any of these teams in the early part of the stages of these teams, I will rely very much to play it safe. I will start off by playing GBM. I know that he's a very strong player from Supermassive. He has the reputation of being a very strong player, so I'll put him in there. And then I'll put Titan from Kaboom and stack him with Riviev. Riviev, an ADC and a support, is a natural stack, much like a quarterback to a wide receiver. They're usually together. They're in the early phase, in the laning phase. The ADC and the support are always together, so they can really stack up the nice kill assist kind of like stacks. Okay. Next, I'm gonna put in a support, Snowflower from Supermassive. Even though supports are typically not relied on to be higher scoring than say a jungler or a mid or ADC. Because it's from a winning team, I'd rather have a player from a winning team over someone from the underdog team that may be on a traditionally higher scoring position. The correlation is very strong, like I mentioned in the past video, that winning teams, players will score a lot more higher. And besides, support is a very cheaper position relative to all the other ones. So let's continue building on. We'll go with Ranger for Supermassive, Kaboom, and then perhaps stick in Fabulous. So we have 4,500 left. That's not a lot of flexibility for me to work around. I go with Kaboom Team. Yeah, that really puts me in a bind where I can't really do much with this. What I may consider is that I'll play Fire from Direwolf. That's my first punt. And then, yeah, it's really tough. So let me see what happens when I do like these two areas for punt, and then I have 6,900 left, which I can play a Supermassive or Kaboom from another team. If I go with this, that will give me 2 Kaboom, 4 Supermassive. This is something to consider for a cash build, and yeah, I might just throw this in cash. Let me see what happens if I put in 3 Kaboom and 3. That will give me how much unused? 300 unused. Pentagram maybe. No, we'll stick with Direwolves. In a typical case, I don't want to have a lineup with members from 4 different teams, because it'll take a miracle or a very, very low chance for people from 4 different teams in your lineup to score very high. You want to stack. Stacking is the game of the League of Legends DFS. So this is the lineup that I'll throw into a cash lineup, like a double ups, maybe the 3-man, maybe head to head, and then for GPP, you may consider stacking one of the favorite teams with one of the underdog teams, and the salary should be loose enough where you can do a 2-team stack. So that's probably where I'll go. I'm thinking I'm probably going Kaboom and Direwolves for my GPP, and there are several ways to make those, and you can experiment around with it, and I think you'll just figure out which of those you like at the end of the day. So this is kind of my process of what I'll do for cash games, and I'll do that again for the second slate and then the third slate again. So I hope this is helpful. I'm considering enlisting your feedback. I want to know how this video can be better, because I want to prepare this well for the summer split that's coming. But good luck if you're playing the MSI. Good luck if you're playing tomorrow. I understand completely if you want to skip tomorrow. But even if it's just $1, maybe like a quarter arcade, just figure out your process, and that's how I started off and kind of build my bankroll from there. So you can also enjoy the games. Again, you can find the games on YouTube. Type in esports LOL, and then subscribe to it. The videos will always be streamed live, and you get to watch it, follow it, have fun, enjoy it, and then see what you're playing. This is a fun game for me to play, and it'll hold me over until the football season starts. So, again, keep on playing. Thanks for watching the video. Hope you are able to learn something. Hope you'll start considering playing more League of Legends. We need more of you people just to let DraftKings know that this is a game that we will want to play, and that we can succeed in, and that we can make money off of it. I can tell you, a lot of people, what I've noticed in the past few seasons that I played, people are very much don't understand the theory behind playing this game. So hopefully this video will help you dominate them. And with that said, good night, have a great day, good luck on tomorrow's slate, and hope to see you in the winner's circle.